Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome back to Talk Seagulls. We're back at the Caxton Arms. Wow, well, this is literally the morning after Crystal Palace has beaten us 3-1. But it is a very nice setup, I have to say, right? It's not all doom and gloom this morning. We're here at the Caxton and we're joined by Jack Albion. Jack, nice to have you down, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice. What a great day. I think we've had this in the calendar for a while. And when we organised it for the morning after Palace, I did have like sort of existential dread that this would be a very depressing episode. But that's why it's good. It's good. I always like to come out when everything goes wrong and, tell everybody to shut up.
Yeah, that's not quite what we're here for, but pretty much. I mean, to be honest, let's just get into it because it's just... Yeah, this is the one, right, to me that was don't lose.
Yeah,
right? And this is the one that was you can't lose. And I think there's been a lot of debate on social media and there's a lot to talk about probably in the sense of I feel like the fan base is actually more divided after yesterday and I've seen it in a long time. And there's a lot of sort of bits and pieces to go through. But particularly I think from Palace fans, I think, and I'll give them credit, while they're probably still tuned in, trying to see our meltdown, I'll give them credit and say, look, they did what they needed to do. They managed, tactically they were very good, and I think they actually probably played their best game. I've seen them for a long time against us, right? So they deserve the win. But more to the point, actually, after the game, I got messages from Palace fans, and I was expecting a lot of bad stuff, to be honest. I was expecting like a lot of sort of, taking the mick, a lot of laughing emojis, a lot of maybe, I don't even know, right? And actually, it was complete opposite. And I had worse after we've beaten them and after we've maybe drawn with them and all this. And I thought, really weird. They're actually agreeing with us and they're actually talking with us on a level basis. And sort of the common denominator was, we're actually not playing as good football as we were last season. We're not playing anywhere near the levels we could do with the squad we've got. And, maybe we were relying a bit too much on individual brilliance. And the fact that that was a bit of a quite normal conversation. I don't know if you've had any chats with Palace fans, but it was actually quite reasonable, to be honest. Yeah,
I mean, I follow a lot of Palace fans on social media. Some of them are all right. But, I do think, I don't want to take away anything from the Palace victory because I don't think they were... they've won 3-1 away at their rivals. It's a great result for them. But I don't think they were outstanding. Like, for example, when I think...
Didn't have to make them work for it too hard.
It's interesting, like, the perspective of when we won 4-1 last season. We were electric. We were... we could have won by more. And I think Palace could have won by more. I think there were some big chances they missed from Nketiah. But... they could have won by more. But what I thought Palace did really well, and I think this shows sort of like the benefits of Glasner, is they just did all the basics really well. It's all about doing the basics really well. And, I thought they were... The low block they did, because we did have a decent spell, about 60 minutes. And Henderson, fair play to him, he's a player I've given a lot to stick to because I just don't think he's that... Didn't previously think he was that good. And he was... He was fantastic. Like the save he made from Enciso early second half, that is a world-class save. Because I do think it's a bit weird when they got rid of Johnston. I like that. I liked him. I thought he was a decent goalkeeper. So for me, it was a bit strange. But I didn't think they were outstanding, but they did what they had to do. And I think a lot of the focus is probably on us that I think there's a lot of guff. Like we do a lot of stuff where we don't really know what it's proving.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a weird one for us because we've been so used to and so accustomed to. We're talking to about it off air of how we almost expect to win now. We go into games expecting to win. We've got to Europe. We've done such amazing things as a club in the last couple of years, and rightfully so. I think that the expectation should always be there. I think we should keep that now. That's one thing that we've got, and we should always want to aim high. I agree with that. But maybe we've got that sense of entitlement that when we do now get hit, we're maybe not as best at dealing with it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that everybody's the same, because there's people like me and you who will talk quite reasonably, and I'm sure there's absolutely loads of people watching this and people that are in the pubs and stuff going home yesterday that would have been in the same boat. Weirdly, actually, yesterday wasn't the one I was fuming about as much in comparison to some of the other ones we've thrown away this season. But I think it was more the manner of the defeat and the way we sort of went about it. It was the way that we just didn't look up for it in comparison to them, and we just didn't have that fight that I would associate Brighton to being like. And that's what really got me. I think it's that lack of sort of identity that we didn't show yesterday. I didn't like that, and that to me has become a bit of a theme in the last recent weeks, and that's what we're probably here to talk about for one. But also, it's that fine balance between becoming too ahead of your station and sounding like you demand to get into the Champions League and you demand to win the league, whatever. But then there's also that expectation of, we've spent a lot of money, we have got to Europa League. The expectation clearly from the board is to get back there, right? And the football is worse off.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack with that there. I think the expectation thing is a lot. Like, I do think people, especially our fans, and I think maybe it's the fact that we don't really, a lot of our fans don't know anything but success. Like, you know, I'm 28 and
happy birthday for last week.
Yeah, thank you. And you know, I was, when the Amex opened, that was, you know, that I was about 14. So a lot of my adult life has only been success, and some people don't, you know, younger than me, don't get into football, so they'll only know success and winning. And I do think we're almost disrespectful sometimes to some of the lower teams. We don't treat them, maybe sometimes as fans, with the respect they do, that they can just turn up.
But when we had teams like Brighton as a hashtag at one point, you know, and actually that's one thing that we've really, I don't know, we've not become it, don't get me wrong, but we've got generations of fans. But I think at the same time it's about, you know, you've got to keep the balance of, I feel like I've spoken about this the last 3 times, of keeping the balance of remember where you come from and also expect more. But I think at the moment it's not unreasonable to be expecting more than what we're seeing at the moment. You know, we folded against Leicester, we folded against Southampton, we've lost against our rivals Crystal Palace. You know, the Wolves game as well, now you have to look back and think, okay, that was not good, and it's become a theme. I remember saying a couple of weeks ago actually about the Wolves game, saying I can forget about this game if we can just prove that, for example, the Newcastle.
Because it happened. It happens once in a blue moon. You know, you know, it's happened for years. Every now and then you get a bad result where you can see 2 in the last couple of minutes. I remember when the Amex first opened, we did it against Blackpool, I think it was, very early on. And, you know, we do this sort of, it happens. But for it to, this 2 goal in 8 minutes thing is getting
bit concerning.
And you know, it happened again yesterday. 2 goals in 8 minutes. You know, conceding one and not having the concentration to go like, right, 1-0 down, let's go up.
Yeah.
And I sometimes think it's like a lot of the players are eager to right their wrongs straight away, so they end up going forward, leaving stuff exposed. I'm not trying to blame the referee here. I do think there were. Do you know, it's a weird one though, because you can't really complain about these refereeing decisions. I think I saw
I can't complain about ref too much.
No, I just think there were some frustrating decisions yesterday. I think Mike Oliver getting in the way of Belieber, which has led to a corner. Yes, we should be defending those corners, but you know, we can't look at that. But it's 2 goals where we've been slightly unlucky, maybe. I don't think we were looking good for the first 10 minutes, but we haven't got the mentality to go like, right, we've conceded. Oh well, move on. Go to the next bit, and that's what the best teams do. You know, City always concede a lot, and they're not doing very well at the moment. So it's a bad example. But
they've had that. You know, don't get me wrong, they've got a different stratosphere of squad to us. They've got a different, you know, elite level of manager to us. But again, it's that same sort of thing of. You trust in that management to turn it around. I think maybe with Hertzler's point of view, and this is the only sort of thing I will say about Hertzler, because I don't want to go on a pile on, because it's not helpful for him, it's not helpful for anyone. But I think the style has not been good this season. I think that's quite obvious. I think the wins we've got have been through moments of individual brilliance, and I've been sort of willing to just scrap it away and think, okay, I'll be quiet about it and just see if we get any better. I think when you lose to Palace 3-1, it's quite hard not to talk about that, especially when it could have actually been more. I think even that 3rd or 4th goal, whatever it would have been at the time, probably should have stood and could have stood. I think it was a bit of a shove.
I think now's the right decision.
Do you actually? I've got to be honest. I think it was. I think
it was 2 hands on the back and a push. Like,
maybe it was 2. I think
it's harsh, but to be honest, I don't think it's that crazy of a decision.
It's not crazy. It's not
crazy.
And
it was given by the on-field referee.
Yeah.
So for me, and then it gets checked through VAR. So for me, that's sort of one of those ones where it's 50-50. Just go with whatever the referee thinks on the pitch.
For sure. But it's also the fact that chance has been conceded again. I think at times, even if it was offside, for example, even if there was moments where it might have been a little bit sceptical, there were still chances created that were a bit too easy for my liking. I think I saw the XG at the end of the game. I think they got close to 3. I think we were on 0.75. Listen, I know people don't like XG, but for me, it's quite a good base of the sort of quality of chances we're creating. And that's just not there at the moment. We're not creating them quality chances.
I think the worrying thing is entries into the box. I know this is I'm finally going to do something.
This is statistical. This is analytical behaviour.
You know, and this is not based upon anything.
Pub chat.
Yeah, I know. This isn't based on anything. By the way, this is like Jack's eye test that. Yesterday, the amount of times we're crossing balls in rather than just... And that's frustrating because we've got, Mitoma, arguably one of the most talented players in the league. I know he's been off form recently, but he can be on his day.
Yeah.
Getting an entry to the box. He's the only one really getting anywhere near the box.
Yeah.
And you think, under De Zerbi, you should get penalties all the time. We haven't had a single penalty this season, which is a worrying stat. Like, I think, Minter, very quick player. He's not really getting into the box.
This is it. I agree.
And I think we've got... It's a hard one to diagnose, but I think there needs to be some kind of... There's a lot of long shots, a lot of... I don't know, now the stats fade away and I just start going about vibes. But it's... I don't know, it's a hard one to work out because the entries into the box, that's worrying. And we're not sort of... De Zerbi does some fantastic passing moves and that got us entries into the box. And I think Mitoma, he got a lot of criticism yesterday. I thought we were just relying on him. Every time the ball went up there, we were just going,
pouting it to him.
Give it into him. And look, Mitoma can't do everything.
No.
He cannot, his moments of brilliance with him. And if you're doing it every time you're coming across the box, and then it's like, right, where do we go now? Right, we'll go to Mitoma, he'll take someone on. We need to change that. We need to find a plan B almost.
It can be counterproductive having a lot of players that are actually individually brilliant. I mean, you've got the likes of João Pedro, Jorginho, Minte, Mitoma. Don't get me wrong, all of these can create magic. We know that. But I think when you're almost relying on that runner, you're relying on that sort of moment of brilliance, if you like, it almost it goes against each other because of the sort of reliance and dependence on doing it. I think I heard on TalkSport earlier where they're talking on the drive into Brighton today, and they're just talking about sort of Brighton and how we're not really doing this and we're not doing this with certain strikers in the box, and you need a proper striker in the box. You need Danny Welbeck back. Don't get me wrong, we do. We
need Danny Welbeck. We need that guy Welbs back.
João Pedro last season got 20 goals and assists or whatever it was. These players can score goals. You don't need a striker to score goals, especially when you've got players of this quality, right? And for me, as you said rightly, we've got two of the arguably best, could be potentially one of the best winged partnerships in the league, right?
Yeah, definitely.
This is a serious advantage for us.
Yeah.
You've got Tarek and Minte on one side. That's a stupid amount of pace. One of the biggest sort of most productive ways of getting a winger to produce more goals and assists is getting them to the byline and cutting the ball back. And as sort of boring as that sounds, it's such an obvious tactic for me that we don't seem to utilise enough. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to pretend to be a manager here. But there's just sometimes I think the tactic and the decision making behind some of these moments, it's just not there for me. And as you say, with De Zerbi, that quality of chances, I keep saying the quality of chances for me is what I really base how good a Brighton team is, right? And people won't like to hear it, but under Potter, for example, we created a lot of good chances. Under De Zerbi, we created a lot of good chances, right? And then I think it was BBC, whatever it was, the radio yesterday, driving back, and they were talking about sort of, well, we didn't take our chances, so that's the reason we didn't win. I thought, what chances? You don't win that game based on sort of our chances that we didn't have. They weren't there.
The ones we didn't create.
That's
but
it.
I do think there is one big common denominator we created good chances under Potter and then we created good chances under Roberto De Zerbi, which is Pascal Gross.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think this was a discussion that we had yesterday is, we didn't have many big chances. We didn't create this XG like you've just said and all of this. But, I was, funny enough, it was when I was doing, shout out to Joe, when I was doing his episode of Tenable, and it was the assists thing. And Pascal Gross is top of our assists. He's 53 assists. He's like a record all-time.
Joke plan.
And we were thinking, last season when we would have a bad game, it would be, Pascal Gross still created 8 chances. And got the assist for the one goal.
You'd almost not notice that Gross was there.
And I do think there is maybe we're lacking in just how influential he was. And I don't think we realise how influential he was because, we could really drag a game up by its heels by, a fantastic ball into the box, which would land on, I think Forest away last year, a fantastic cross by Gross, lands on João Pedro's head, and we're 2-1 up going into half time. We just didn't have that yesterday, that little sort of magic spark. I think Jorginho had a bad game, who I think is probably a similar-ish player to Pascal Gross. And that's not a massive criticism of Jorginho, because I think he's been probably arguably our best summer signing so far. Yeah. But and he worked incredibly hard yesterday.
Yeah, he does.
But he just wasn't very good.
But again, it's that. Yeah, no, he wasn't. And again, it's that. These players aren't bad players. Mutoma is not a bad player. Jorginho is not a bad player. Joao Pedro, Minte, as I keep saying to you, these are very, very good players.
Yeah, talented players.
Talented players.
Arguably the most talented front four we've ever had. Yeah.
And that for me is the red flag. You know, I'm thinking, why are we struggling to create chances with arguably one of the best attackers we've ever had? And this is the bit where I question Fabian, and I really hope he does turn it around. Right? And I do. I'm not here trying to bash him. I don't want him to get sacked. I don't want it to be like that.
He's a long way off that sort of situation, though.
My question mark is, how much time do we have this season if the ambition's Europe? Yeah. And look, this is a different Brighton now. Right, this is not Brighton I'm talking about. We're in the relegation zone. We can't afford to get to April before we think about things like this, because realistically, we could be out of the European race by January. Yeah. Right, and I think that's really the thing that, it's almost like you're on a time scale. That time's only going to get smaller as you get towards May, right? And I think that May is even not the deadline. I think you're probably talking about March before you start to think, right, that's not going to happen.
Well, it was like last year, wasn't it? Burnley away.
Yeah.
We drew 1-1 there, and that was kind of, Europe's over.
You think,
now,
it's done.
It's done.
And, that's when, last season I could accept a bit more. We had a stupid amount of injuries. We were suffering with playing in Europe.
Well, we have had a lot of injuries this season. We're still top of the league in terms of injuries. Which is bizarre, because it hasn't been as noticeable.
No, because the team is much better now. And I think,
and we've got a lot more depth.
Yeah, and this is a conversation I'll bring up with you just before I get on Ollie, because Ollie TalkCPFC sent us a video and we need to react to it, because I actually haven't watched it yet. But before I do, just to get the Palace perspective, I don't know how it's going to come across, by the way. But before I do, I feel like that cutting edge, maybe that way of creating the chance, it's not there. The tactical sort of masterstroke we used to have, that way of relying on knowing that we would get out of that situation, it's not quite there. And I heard on Twitter, I think yesterday, and to be fair, I didn't actually receive too much criticism. I thought I was going to get an absolute ton last night, but I actually didn't. And a lot of people saying, but Ryan, you've got to give it time. It's transition period. These players need to gel. And I said, okay, but if this is a transition season, we've just spent £200 million. We've changed our manager. Whether you want to say De Zerbi was right, whether you want to say Tony Bloom was right, I'll let people debate that amongst themselves, right? At the end of the day, we changed manager. Probably the one thing, I said it at the end of last season, the one thing we could have done without is changing manager at the end of the season. Because we actually needed him probably to stay for the sake of keeping that structure.
We've had too much turmoil management-wise. Yeah. And I think, we had Potter for a long period. He left mid-season. Yeah. De Zerbi came in, left at the end of the season, which is better than that. But I mean, no one really knows what happened at the end of the season with De Zerbi and Bloom. I think De Zerbi definitely, it would have been good to keep him, but if we had a great transfer window, got some really good attacking players. What made him think that wouldn't work with him? Yeah, and that's a frustrating thing, because I think, I said this exact line, but would we have De Zerbi now be in the same position and he's moaning because he didn't get some 26-year-old clogger from Hellas Verona? Exactly. Who, and we've got to look at it. I just find the whole summer quite baffling, considering the amount we spent, the changes we made, possibly some of the tactics that the new manager came in. Are the players suited to that? Yeah. Like Weaver, he's come under criticism, but arguably in the summer, one of the best young midfielders in the world. I don't think that's unfair to say. Yet we've signed him for a manager who says publicly that I don't play with a midfield. Yeah, that's a bit weird for me, anyway. But look, that's a bit of a strange one. I think that maybe what De Zerbi was getting at slightly, but I still think he was very much in the wrong at times. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that there's definitely wrongs in De Zerbi. I'm not coming in and saying he was an absolute saint. Don't get me wrong. I don't agree with anything that's happened at Marseille either. Before anyone wants to bring that up, but I'm just saying that probably on a pure base of where we were at as a football club going into that summer, the last thing we needed was losing a manager. And I think now, yes, you could call it a transition, but for me, I'm looking at it. I think the transition's happened. I feel like that last season, losing two of your best players, not replacing them in the way we did, going through Europe in the way we did, I feel like that was the learning curve. Yeah. And that was the moment where we had a big slap in the face. And then we thought, hang on a minute,
the season after, this is where we can get back to where we were the season before that. And that's what I think personally that the board did this summer. I think that they want to be back in 2023 this year.
I mean, of course
right?
you want to be back.
Agree. It's money,
Yeah.
but it's more importantly, that's the ambition of the club.
Yeah.
And I hear people almost losing that ambition now, and it's driving me mad. I think because you shouldn't lose the ambition. Don't let this sort of invisible cap now come on when we've just spent the most amount of money we've ever done.
Gus Poyet's ceiling.
That's it. And people are now going back to the past. People are now going back to when we were under Houghton. People are now going back to when we were in the Championship, League One, etc. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not the same Brighton anymore.
No.
Like as much as it is, it's not.
Yeah.
Right? We are a much different club now. We have an opportunity of a lifetime to get into Champions League. That's most likely, at this rate anyway, not going to happen. No. Right? And with the amount of money and the amount of resources we put into this season, I don't think that'll be very acceptable at the top level. And look, this isn't me saying it. This is them saying it, right? Yeah. They've put the ambition out. I'm not saying nothing. Yeah. So we'll see, right? I think is what I'm saying. But I feel like that's my real reservation. I feel like the red flags are now starting to creep up a little bit. And I'm thinking, right, we don't want the season to end in a failure. We don't want that to happen.
No.
But it does need to turn around and pretty quickly.
I think we're at a crossroads here this season. Like, very much what you say. Like, we want the ambition to go up. I think that's definitely to be in that place. I think this season, I mean, my prediction and what I was happy with was 10th.
Really?
Oh
my god!
Just because I thought it's a young team. I think we spent a lot of money in the summer. I agree, 100%. But none of them were Premier League ready players, which I think was the only sort of. We spent a lot of money buying the sort of players that we always buy. You know, young players, often from foreign league or championship, and trying to make them better. And I do think there was definitely a period of transition that needed to come in. But I think what the frustration is you're seeing this level, and we should definitely, we could easily be higher with a bit more tactical nous. But, you know, for example, you say you haven't really seen that Herzler's shown clear style and like that. I think the only game where we have, and we've looked brilliant for the almost entire game, because I think we were, I'd like to see, against Man City. I thought that was the big one where I really, you know, made great subs, all of that. So there's something there, but I do agree there has to be a point where we sort of go, right, are we going to push on and be ambitious and keep with elite managers? Because I think the manager market was terrible in the summer.
This is the trouble. I feel like
because I think I said it last night. Like I'm not saying sack Herzler, but if you sack him, who comes in?
I just think I know the answer to that question.
Which is,
who do you think?
If it's Graham Potter, boring.
But that's what I think is what's going to happen. If anything, right? And I'm not saying because I want him back.
I don't think what, and I am Potter's number one enemy. I'm not. That's.
I agree with you.
I don't think he's the elite level manager that we should be looking at.
No, but I think when I saw him declare an interest for West Ham and almost saying he'll take a 6-month deal to the end of the season, I'm then thinking, bit of a weird cog that.
Yeah, it is. But I just think we've moved beyond that. We want someone like a
I agree.
who's got. But then what comes with it all is just chaos. Like, you know, and this is the thing. Like, what we really need to do is we need to stick with people, and that's what our big problem. That's why, because it's all about consistency. If we want to consistently be in the Europa League, we've got to have consistency in the team. And if every summer we're having a complete overhaul.
Yeah,
and it's not like. I think the frustration is it's not so much bringing all the players and changing the manager. It's like, you know, McAllister and Caicedo, that was the whole midfield and gone like, gone.
But that's it. So that was the transition last season. Yeah. That was the time where probably you bring in Weaver, probably you bring in these different players, and then you can accept it then a bit. Because you say, first season in Europe, learning curve, we're completely blind to it. Yeah. And I could have lived with that. Obviously, the club decided in the way they did. I'm not criticising them for that. They wanted to then push on in the summer and do it that way. Fine, okay, we'll do that. But then you put more emphasis on this season by doing that. Yeah. You know, because you're almost binning off. You're saying, right, look, let's scrap off March to May. Look, we're going to really go for it in the summer, and we're going to prove what we are in the season after. And once you put that ambition down, for me, especially with De Zerbi being here last season, being how he was, that means then we're going to be raising expectations, saying like, okay, right, I want to see it then, let's see the proof. And I think when you get rid of a manager, whether you got rid of a manager or whether you fed out with a manager, whatever you want to call it, one way or another it's gone, you then put the emphasis on this next one being the man. And actually, when you look at the summer and the amount of managers we spoke to, probably, I mean,
there were lots of names going around.
Yeah, that's it.
I think there was definitely an issue in the summer, because I even saw reports of that Las Palmas manager who's doing crap at Seville now, so fair play. We judged that, but like Gasparini, that was, and you look at Atalanta now, Gasparini was, and I just think maybe the misstep was the summer, that maybe it wasn't the right time. Maybe it wasn't the right time to bring the... Yes, sorry, I was moving the mic nice and far away there. It wasn't the right time to bring in a new manager. But I want to back Herzler, because I think he was he's got a lot to learn. Very young manager. He's got so much to prove and a lot to learn. But he's got the tools to build this platform, and there's been signs of it at certain times. I just think he needs to be a bit more consistent. Like Ayari, great first half at Liverpool. Next game disappears. Yeah. I don't get that. I just want a bit of consistency. Maybe I'm a bit old school in that way. And I think the Fulham game, interesting one. I think this is something that every foreign manager who comes to the UK does, is they see a midweek game, because they don't really have that in Europe except for the old cup game. They see a midweek game and they just have a panic and have no idea what to do. De Zerbi did it himself and just go, I'm going to change everyone. And I'm going to rotate all these players in and out. When you don't really need to do that, you can keep quite consistent with it. So, I don't know. I think he's got a lot to learn, and I don't want to be like, right, we need to be looking beyond Herzler now, because I think give him a whole year in it. But if we want to be this consistent European team, we don't have time for that. Yeah. It's a hard crossroads, I think. It definitely.
It's the difference between being little Brighton and big Brighton.
Yeah.
And it's that decision making of what one are we?
Yeah. But then also, on a separate note, like you look at Stoke, for example, when they came up, they got Europa League, and then they spent loads, because there was that stupid stat, wasn't there, that they had more Champions League winners in their side than Arsenal or Liverpool or something. And they obviously went big, got proven players, really good players on high wages. What are they doing like 5 years later? Yeah. They're barely even getting near the playoffs in the Championship. So it's a very careful thing. You don't want to throw it all in and get all these players and it doesn't work. And that was with keeping a manager. That was keeping with Pulis. So it's a hard one. It's really difficult to sort of see. I'll keep him with Mark Hughes even. And it's really difficult to see that where we go with this, because I think if we do start, because as much as you say maybe Herzler isn't doing it for whatever reason, if we bring him in and bring someone else in, they do well, then we're going to have the whole circus we had with De Zerbi, which was every week like, oh, I don't like the transfer dealings.
Mid-season's always difficult.
I want to go to Bayern Munich. I want to do this. I do think we just need a manager for a consistent amount of time and see where he goes. I think the only worrying thing with Herzler is I'm not really seeing what he's bringing as stylistically at the moment. But I do think there are lots of positives to take from him that, like, for example, the wins that we have done, like, I thought Bournemouth was a very good win.
We've shown a bit of passion at times, I think. Yeah. But then the one game you want the passion is against Palace. That's probably that's the one. It's getting hit in the face, and how do you then react to it, and what do you do? I think because we've been hit quite hard now.
A mental Italian.
Yeah, we've really we've lost that mentality 100%. I think that's what. If it doesn't come back, then I will start to get a little bit concerned. For being honest.
Look, we were due a win against Brighton. We've not beaten Brighton since 2021, or hadn't until Sunday. Joking aside, Fabian Herzler said before the game that Palace were in a bit of a false position in the league and it didn't reflect how good we are. He was right, and I hope Brighton fans can see that to an extent now as well. I'm not saying we completely outplayed them, because we didn't. I think Brighton had chances too. We didn't, batter you. But we're a good team. We're a good team with a solid base of a back three. Now that we've got some consistency there with Chalobah, Guéhi and Lacroix, that is the basis for the rest of the team to build off. Munoz has been really good. We've kind of worked out the front line now too, with Sarr obviously being a big threat. I know obviously he scored 2 goals, but equally like his pace and the prospect of that for defences is something that clearly worries them, and it's completely changed the dynamic of our team. From someone who doesn't obviously watch Brighton that much, it felt like a classic Brighton performance in some ways, and that like you had a lot of the ball and clearly had some individual ability, but just lacked a cutting edge. I was really impressed with Baleba. I thought he was very good. He is a very good player, but again, just like I wasn't that worried a lot of the time. It just felt like it felt like we could cope with Brighton's intensity, which is often something we've struggled with before. And I think Glasner has really made us a tough team to beat and a tough team to play against in terms of, we can go toe-to-toe with a team that's like super physical, super quick, which Brighton are. I thought the game would suit us, to be honest. I thought that we're good when teams come at us and give us a bit of space to operate, and Brighton did do that. Also, we're actually good at set pieces now, which is something we have been historically dreadful at them. I think that's our 6th or 7th set piece we scored this year, which is like more than the entirety of last season already. Look, last year I went to Brighton, we lost 4-1. I left after 30 minutes. And this time, I stayed. I stayed long beyond the full-time whistle because I just felt like we've earned that. What a game, what a day. Brighton away is a lot more enjoyable when we win. Crazy take, I know. Anyway, Ryan, hold that. No, I'm joking. Don't hold that. Unlucky these things happen. I'm sure you'll have revenge soon enough. But that felt good. It felt good to finally get one up on Brighton because it's been way too long. Way too long. Ismail Assar and Trevor Chalobah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, finish on that.
Brilliant. Okay.
It's not like that Eze song he did at the weekend.
Hard listen, that Ollie. Cheers, mate.
He rightly got stick for that. I didn't want to pile in, but that was one of the worst, other dreadful football songs. But you know what,
Ollie, thank you. If you want to follow, I'd be surprised. No, he does some decent stuff.
No, I do like Ollie. Ollie is quite a level-headed Palace fan.
Yeah, it's a rarity
for them.
It's a rarity
because they have some nutters who lose their heads all the time. So yeah.
But look, listen, he's right in what he says. Yeah, he's right in what he says, and they have earned it, and they did deserve it. As much as it's hard to say, we didn't really worry them, and that's quite hard to hear for me on the other side, hearing them not have to worry about us, and that we didn't really make them think about us. And I think the fact that that's Brighton now, that's a bit concerning because we haven't really shown that dominance and that, I said it last week, and I think it took a little bit literally when I said we haven't played well for 90 minutes. And obviously I know that you can't physically play well for 90 minutes. Yeah. You're going to have periods of the game where you're under it a little bit. But by the basis of 90 minutes playing well, I mean actually defending well. I mean actually making good saves. I mean actually looking quite composed and not, looking flustered and not posing too much threat. There's playing well, but then there's also playing well as a team and all round.
Which is what Palace did. Like, literally what you've just described there is what Palace did.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think it's interesting that this was something said in the pub. Every team has spells in the Premier League. You never go a single game in the Premier League without a team having a 15-minute spell. Even when we were, when we were 4-1 up against Palace last year.
Yeah, they had a moment.
They had a moment. They had a spell where Anderson set in one of the greatest crosses I think I've ever seen in world football.
And it was a great header, that goal. But then...
But what we need to stop doing is concede in every one of those spells.
That's it.
And that, we can talk about the attacking play. We're on the ball a lot. I think maybe the cutting edge thing. I think that's Danny Welbeck possibly yesterday.
I think as well, but again, it comes down to the same thing of the chances. I don't agree. I don't think there was, apart from the Mitoma moment, I don't think we had a real moment where I thought, we should have. That was a goal. You know what I mean? And that's the difference, right? And I remember playing against Palace and we'd have 30 shots, and I think they scored one, the Benteke one. These are the sort of games I associate to playing Palace with. We've done that in the last 4 years, and they haven't beaten us since because we dominate them. We have a lot of shots. We have a lot of moments. We defend those moments when they're against us. That's what I mean by playing well for 90 minutes. Yeah. It's being tactically sound. It's being well resolute as a side, as a footballing team.
And then every now and then you might concede an unlucky.
You can live with it.
You can live with it because you played well for the majority of the game, and then Benteke scored a volley, which is one.
And you get over it in the basis that you know that the team's played well, and I think that's where I was at with Potter, and that's where even when we lost under De Zerbi. Don't get me wrong, De Zerbi's ones, particularly last season, I'm sort of looking at the ones under 22-23 season when we had a full team fit. That to me is just lacking and definitely gone at the moment. I think if we don't bring that back, that there will be question marks. Of course, there will be.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I weirdly agreed with almost everything he said.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, what a shame. I've got nothing to say.
Yeah, not bitter about a Palace fan.
Yeah, but I think we discussed it right at the beginning, didn't we? That was the same response as every Palace fan, and I think. I didn't think Palace were outstanding, and we just need to. I do think one big problem is we can rely on the individual brilliance up front if the defending isn't just absolutely appalling. Like some of the this isn't like, I don't want to make, but some of the defending is, I think with Veltman, we arguably.
Yeah. Veltman's massive miss.
Yeah, Veltman's a massive miss. I think I saw a stat that we have not won a single game without Veltman.
Not surprising at all.
Every single one of our wins has come with Veltman. Now, that's not just one player. I think if we're going to play a back four, we've got to fix it across. And I don't know, I feel like when Lamptey plays, it's because we want to push up and be a higher team, and he's a great player for that. But I just don't think his future is at the back. I think he's more of a winger.
He's actually...
he's filling a hole. Like, at the end of the day, I think someone pointed out, we are almost down to our fifth choice right back.
Yeah, and if Lamptey gets his goals and assists into his game, he becomes a very good sort of inverted winger.
I thought he was very good going forward at times yesterday, but it's the mistake at the back which has caused the second goal, which has killed the game as well.
Yeah,
like I think if we don't concede that, maybe we concentrate a bit more. We go on to get an equaliser later on. So, and I think as much as we can say, "Oh, the manager did this, the manager did that," it's just silly moments like that. And I think the individual errors thing. This was interesting because obviously Igor last week. I get it, players make individual errors, but if everyone's making individual errors...
I'm glad you said this.
Then there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, Dunk's made a massive individual error.
So, this is what I'm saying. So I said this last week, whether it was we for 1 week, it was Igor another week, now it's Dunk, then it was Lamptey, right? And I'm thinking, and I think Bart as well was getting a lot of pelters. And again, it was a similar sort of reaction. As soon as Bart doesn't claim the ball, it's what's he doing?
Yeah.
What's Dunk doing? He's past it.
Yeah.
Igor's not good enough. He can't play out. He gets dragged.
I actually
Herbert Stepinian was having some very questionable moments.
Yesterday, I thought, a player who has been good all season, I thought JP was dreadful yesterday.
JP had a bad game.
Thought he was really bad yesterday. And that's, once again, not a massive criticism, but I just didn't think...
But this is it.
So, stinker. I think he knows that, though. He's always the first to come over and apologise, to be fair.
He is, but then this is the problem.
Apology,
if
JP.
The individual errors are sort of happening quite regularly and they're in a way that's... It's almost uncharacteristic of them. That's when I start to question what sort of characteristics being put into them. What tactically are they doing? Because I think I remember Van Hecker going sort of on the right side of defence at one point in this season.
Well, that's when we made that odd half-time sub of Enciso on for Lamptey. Like, I did think...
It was a weird sub in the sense of the shape. I think actually Enciso, and I'll give him credit for it, he actually did do quite well when he came on.
He's had a lot of criticism this season, some warranted, some not warranted at all. Like, some of it's just been bizarre.
Yeah.
But I thought yesterday he came on and really made a difference. I thought that, that was actually the one good thing I thought Herzler did, was bring on an Enciso, because, maybe not necessarily for another right back, but whatever, was he could see it wasn't working going out wide. So let's bring it in midfield. Bring it inside and let's get a bit more technical.
But the thing is, scary thing is, we've then still got Joao Pedro, we've still got Jorginho in that middle, which is a bit of a
I did feel
question
like
mark for me.
We did a little bit of and at the end when we were 2-0, it did sort of become like, right, how many wingers we got on the bench? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, let's just chuck them all on.
Gruder as well.
But when you're 2-0 down though, to a certain extent, I thought Gruder was okay actually when he came on, but to a certain extent, you're 2-0 down. You've got to throw everything at it. So I do get that in a certain extent. If you're going to lose 2-0, you might as well lose 3-0, and that's kind of what happened. I do think we left it too open at the back, and that's what led to the
agree. And that's what we've missed, is that sort of sense of smelling blood and wanting to just kill a team. I don't think we even looked close to doing anything like that to Palace yesterday. But then again, we did have that exact moment which we could have done against Southampton. We could have done against Leicester. There was moments in them games to kill the team. But again, it comes down to a similar sort of old story of you don't create the quality chance, you don't get to put them away. We aren't defending very well at all. We're letting in way too many goals. It's getting a little bit concerning based on the squad depth that we've got at the moment to hand.
I think the squad depth at the back is not very
not
good.
the best.
I think
that'll be Janury's sort of moment, to be fair.
It irritates me a little bit because we spent a lot on attacking midfielders, but we seem to have completely ignored centre backs, where it's quite obviously Dunk, he had his injuries towards the end of last season. Yeah,
to be fair, the centre back market isn't the kindest.
No, it's not. But and we've got good centre backs in the academy, because just for the podcast we're talking about like McConville, Freddie Simmons, but they're at least 2 or 3 years off.
Yeah.
Or
And if you're going to chuck
yeah.
Simmons in now, I think you're just going to be, it's almost going to be detrimental to him, unless
Yeah.
he really does step up and you see one of them.
Yeah.
But
I mean, he's
yeah,
a great player.
McConville's-
I'm like Freddie Simmons' #1 fan. I
Yeah.
just think he's a very, very good
But
player.
there's a reason why McConville's been on the bench for the last couple of weeks. He got into the Irish squad. He's sorry, the Northern Irish squad. He's obviously a very good
diplomatic incident
yeah,
there.
sorry to the Irish and
Yeah.
Northern Irish there. But again, he's obviously got an abundance of talent about him. But
Yeah.
it's them relying on him, and a bit like we did with Ferguson, you then
Yeah.
become reliant on a teenager, and that's not necessarily healthy
Yeah.
at all. But Jack, it's been an interesting chat, mate.
Yeah,
I think
definitely
considering
has.
where we're at the moment, I think we've spoke about it respectfully. I don't think we've completely gone all in.
No, I
we've
think-
not made ourselves look completely stupid
I
whilst
think it's a lot of
addressing
it's,
the topic.
a lot of it's like eye test, isn't it? Like I think, and I know that sounds all a bit stupid, but a lot of it is just kind of having a look, and what you're
Yeah.
seeing isn't quite adding up.
It's not good enough, and I think that's basically where it's at. It's not good enough, and it has to change.
There was something I was going to say about Palace. Oh yeah, that was it. Just because obviously Palace fans will watch it, whatever. I do actually
They
think,
clicked
like,
off now, mate.
Yeah,
They saw
but,
Ollie come on, and
it's,
he's gone now.
I will say with Crystal Palace, to be fair to them, you said that thing about the 30 shots. That was when they had Hodgson, and they had quite a few years of having consistently quite crap managers, badly mismanaged in the sense that they didn't really know what to do, so just went like, right, we're going to bring Hodgson back or whatever. I do, and it hurts me to say it, but I do think Ollie Glasner is a very good manager.
He's different level to what they've had previously.
Yeah. And I think he's a very good manager. So I do think there's that side of it where they that's why they look better. That's because I don't think they are the Palace who sit back, dig deep. They are Palace, they are attacking. I don't want to just because they'll just get loads of pelts for it, but I do think like some of their signings have been a bit naff.
I agree that they're a better
He's
team.
not very good, Nketiah.
They're a better team, but I don't then want to become scared of Crystal Palace.
No.
I don't then want to become
But
scared
that's
of
the worry.
teams.
I think they're building a good team now that they are worrying me a bit, and it's not the same Hodgson team. And like you say about smelling blood, Palace aren't the team of last year where we saw them turn up and we saw their build up to the game and we smelt blood almost straight away, and we were 3-0 down. You had Hodgson chucking on an injured Elise who lasted 10 minutes. But I do think there's holes in their team. But another completely irrelevant point, my last point, is, people were saying, we're getting 21 points out of 21 points. There's no holes in our team. If there are no holes in our team, we'll get 20 points. We're winning the title.
Yeah. Well,
And
were we on
we
2
are
points in
not
our
that
last
level
12? I think we're 2 points in our last
2
12.
points from our last 12, when people were saying 21 out of 21.
Yeah. So
Which is
that's the
insane.
reality call. And unfortunately for me, and this is what I keep feeling like I keep saying, but the style of play isn't there enough for me to overlook the points on the board. And I think, Palace can talk about being in a false position, which I think on the basis of yesterday, they certainly are.
They're a much better team than their position.
But we're also in a false position.
Yeah.
And I think that's really hit us a
It's
little.
so tight. It's so tight.
It's so tight, but
and that's why we're almost in a false position, because, we win against West Ham next week, and we're almost...
back in the mix. True, but I want to see that.
Yeah. I want to see a big reaction next week.
Yeah, it has to. It has to, and that's the only. That's what I leave it on. It has to change, because I'm in the thing of, look, I'm a young fan, yes, but I've still watched this club through a lot. Bear in mind, I'm not just one of them people that was watched this in the Premier League, and I think that's a bit of a misconception. I look younger than I actually am, to be fair. I have watched this club through a lot, and I can still expect more. And you're the same. But Jack, you've been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming down to Caxton, by the way. I wish we could have done it in better circumstances. Maybe with a beer would have been nice rather than water. But
instead of 10 in the morning. But it's all right.
got to drive back, haven't we? So
exactly. So.
Anyway, thank you for watching. We will see you. Make sure you stream on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube. Make sure you like and comment. I want to hear some comments, to be fair. I want to hear about the debates. Make sure you follow Jack as well.
Yeah, don't follow me on Twitter. It's a waste of everyone's time.
We'll see you.
Follow me on Instagram, actually. My Instagram is much more friendlier.
Yeah, and he talks about kebabs.
Much more friendlier. Just talk about kebabs and then post nice pictures of the football. Not argue with politicians. So
there you go. Yeah, don't get into that. But we'll catch you next time. Make sure you see us shortly before Christmas.